Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we're here today after Derby's sixth straight defeat. Six straight defeats in the league, 7 if you count the 1-1 draw away at Leyton Orient that we lost on penalties. It's not been a great time for Derby, let's be honest. 4 wins in 25 now. Not a lot of fun, but there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of pressure on Derby's manager, Paul Warne. We'll have a full discussion on, is he being hard done by? Is it all his fault? I'd say it probably isn't. But, there's a lot of stuff to chat about. There's a lot of things where we can sort of discuss different points of view, discuss how people are reacting to different points of view. We've got a lot to say. My long, waffly intro is basically my way of saying it's going to be a very interesting episode, and we'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you're live, or even if you're not watching live. Let us know in the comments what you think about A, what we've said, and B, Derby under Paul Warne this year. So joining me today for all the long discussion is, first off, Jamie Page. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's a testing time at the moment, isn't it, to be a Derby County fan? But by looking on social media, I don't feel like I've lost my head as much as some people. So I'll take some positives from that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also got Vik Singh. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Felt deflated after the game yesterday, but I think I've had 24 hours to sort of reflect and look back and just have a real proper deep thought about Derby and the state we're in. So not too bad at the minute, and I hope you guys are all good as well.
Yeah, all good. Thank you, mate. All good. And I think that's a good point about the reflection. There's a reason why we do this on the Sunday night instead of the Saturday, because emotions were very raw yesterday. Derby obviously falling 2-1 away at Cardiff. But I mean, we seem to have so many games, Jamie, where we come into the game, we're quite excited. The team I thought was actually pretty good. It was pretty good yesterday. All the players we wanted to see play were on the pitch. We had a couple of players returning as well, which was really exciting. And Derby actually had a pretty good first half. But once again, we shipped 2 very soft goals and we lose again. I mean, what's that down to? Is it mindset? Where does that mindset come from? Is it from the manager? Do we just not have the right players? I mean, I thought it was quite baffling yesterday that Ben Osborne was captain. Obviously probably one of our poorest performing players this season. I'll go on the record to say I think he's been really poor since he's come in, and he gets given the captain's armband over the likes of Fozzie, who's obviously been here 200 years, Erin Cashin, who, well, I think we know why, because Paul Warne knows that he's trying to get out of the club. I mean, what were your thoughts going into the game, and how surprised were you that Derby lost away from home?
Well, I think first off, I was quite excited about seeing the team. I think we wanted Corey Blackett-Taylor, we wanted Salverson to start. I was surprised to see such an attacking, forward-thinking Derby County team. We wanted to go and win the game. And I think for the first half, we were good. We played well. We had good moments. Again, it's a similar situation that when you're on top, you need to score goals. And unfortunately, this Derby County team just can't do that. Now, is that Paul Warne's fault? Maybe. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But all you can do on a Saturday is go and have a go. And I think we do. 9 times out of 10, we go and have a go. I think there's been certain games this season where I don't think we've necessarily covered ourselves in glory. Against Leeds, I think that's the one that sticks out the most. But you can't deny that these players aren't playing for Paul Warne, but it's just not happening. And I think you look at the ebb and flow of a game. There's patterns of play, isn't there? That even if Southampton are playing Man City, there are spells where Southampton will have some chances, and there'll be patterns of play where teams do take their chances and teams don't. And I think the issue is with Derby at this level is that we're just not scoring when we're on top. We're not making the right decisions. We're not covering ourselves in glory, and it's so frustrating to watch because yesterday before the kickoff, seeing that team, I thought we've got a chance here. And for 45 minutes, I thought, we've got a real chance of winning this game. Come out and start well in the second half. And I think we'll get the 3 points. But as we saw, a few moments of madness and we're 2-0 down, chasing the game. And that just kind of kicks us into life again. And it's like, well, why can't we see this kind of tenacity and this Derby County like more, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, I just feel like I'm rambling, and I don't want to be too negative because I think it's really soul destroying to watch that. And I think it's even worse when you just put a real negative spin on it. And I get why people do it, because it's a coping mechanism. But for me, I'm more upset than angry. I think that's probably the best way that I can sum it up.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think the big thing for me is I don't think it's even anger. I don't think it's even too much being upset. I think it's just it's been mentioned loads of times, the general apathy around the team at the minute. I saw Judy King on Twitter put a really good post out talking about how she feels about going to games, and a sort of not necessarily loss of interest, but you kind of lost that passion a little bit because you know what's going to happen. And it's not like when you look at other seasons where we've been down there, that Rooney season where we ended up going down because of our 21-point deduction. I still felt like every game we'd turn up and give it a real go, and we'd often get a result. How many times did we come from a goal down that season to get a result, especially at home? And it feels like this Derby team's different. It feels like this Derby team to me, this feels like probably performance-wise the worst Derby team since, the Premier League season. And it is, isn't it? It is. We don't really create clear-cut chances. How we created 2 chances yesterday. One was from a corner. And when you look at it like that, how are we going to win games if we don't create chances? Even with the amount of players we had. I mean, Vik, looking at our starting 11, Zetterstrom in goal, obviously. Who else would be there? But you've got a back 3. Ryan Nyambe back from injury, which is great news for us. You've then got Craig Forsyth and Aaron Cash in there as well. Blackett Taylor right wing back. Elder left wing back. Midfield of Osborne, Howdmine. And then you've got Andy Ibu Adams. And then you've got, I don't know why, by the way, FOTMob have got us down as like having the weirdest back 3 of all time. That's why it threw me for a second then. And then you've got Salverson and Yates as a front 2. Now, that on paper looks a decent team. And you'd think that's a team that had, carved teams open. You've got excitement down the right. You've got players that can, hold the ball up. And we continue to do exactly the same as we always do, which is try and work it down the line, try and cross it in and hope someone gets there. We played it into Salverson's feet 2 or 3 times, and every time we got something out of it. Same with Jerry Yates. We played it into his feet a couple of times. We got something out of it, and then we just didn't do it again. And Vik, from your perspective, how well did we set up that team? How excited were you to see that team start? And how well do you think they played in relation to that excitement?
I mean, given the personnel before we started the game, it was probably the best 11 we could have put out. I think CBT deserved this start. We've seen what he's done in his cameos. Obviously, the question was, could he do it from the off in the starting 11? I thought he played okay until he pulled up. But again, it's just one of those things with CBT. I think maybe he's just more of an impact player rather than a starter. But other than that, like the 2 that we've been talking about that we've needed for so long, playing 2 up top with Salverson and Yates, despite them not really training that much, I thought you can see that they're building some sort of link, some sort of connection there. I mean, the goal come from a Yates cross, Salverson header. So I think given time, that could be a positive as well. I was quite excited. I thought we could take the game to Cardiff, and I did think to myself, we needed to win this game. And this is probably the best team to put out there. I was really excited to see Nyambe back as well, who I thought was decent for the majority of the game. Obviously, he's coming back, so I will give him a bit of leeway. But I was genuinely excited. It's just sometimes when you're in this sort of run, when you're losing 5-6 on the bounce, like they say, when it rains, it pours. And I feel like that's what's happening at Derby at the minute. Everything seems to be going against us. We're picking up injuries left, right, and centre. We're not having too much luck in the transfer market at the minute, and then the results are on top of that. So it's a culmination of everything, and that's why the fans, I think, are so frustrated with the way things are going. I think, yeah, we can talk about Paul Warne's style of play. However, we can also talk about the players on the pitch. Now, yes, we can see that they're putting 100% effort in, but sometimes it feels like it's not good enough. Like, it feels like we're trying to do things, we're trying to play a certain way, and maybe the quality just isn't there in this squad. That's what I can put it down to. I thought yesterday we set up probably the way we should have, but so when it rains, it pours, and when you're down on your luck again with the chalked out offside goal, which I think looking back it probably was, it's very, very close though. It's little moments like that in games that can change it. We if we go 1-0 up, there's no way we're losing that game yesterday, 100%.
Oh, I
But
don't know.
I don't think we would. I don't
They
think we would
came
have
from
lost that
2
game.
down against a much better team a couple of days before. But I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, because we was in the ascendancy for that first half. They didn't really know how to deal with us. Obviously, second half they changed everything. But yeah, going back to your original question, I was excited to see the lineup. It was probably the best we probably could have put out, but unfortunately the luck wasn't there, and it was just again one of those days for us.
It was. I mean, let's talk about the big positive, Jamie, before the moan, or the extended moan, because we've been moaning already. But Salverson, first start for Derby. Crazy. A week ago, he wasn't even fit enough to make the bench, but now he can play a full 90. Interesting to see what the medical team had to say about that, because in my eyes, they're just waffling. But I thought he played well. He took his goal really well. Really good header. His hold-up play doesn't seem too bad. He seems to get into the right places in the box. We saw that in midweek against Sunderland as well. Probably should have scored that second header from Mendes-Lang's corner, but for a player making his debut or his full debut for Derby, he definitely gave us a bit of hope, didn't he?
Yeah, there's definitely some optimism surrounding him, and I really liked. I think his first big chance was the ball. Was it from Elder on the left, and he kind of hung back and he swiped. Obviously, it went straight down the keeper's throat, but you could just see that his movement was right. So I think we've got ourselves a player here, and I think we've got ourselves a player that can hopefully unlock Jerry, and hopefully we can see the best of Jerry Yates as well. But yeah, he does remind me. I know people have said it, and he does remind me of Haaland. And it's not just the blonde locks. He seems to kind of run in a not as cartoon like, I'd say, but he's got a bit of a Haaland kind of bounce to him. And I think, obviously the header at the back stick was something that you could see Erling doing the Prem for City. So I think the more we get the ball into him, we can play off of him. We know that if we hang it up, he's got a good head. We obviously saw that against Sunderland. The 2 chances that he had against Sunderland. So yeah, there's lots of positivity around him. And how long have we waited for? I think you said it last week, but how long have we waited for a striker of this mould and this kind of presence? I think he's going to be a really good addition. And you look at it and you think if you can get another couple of signings around him, players that can find him in the box, I think that's the most important thing we need to do now. We definitely need another wide player, potentially another 10 as well, that can find him in good areas, and hopefully his goals can keep us up. And I know that the fans are obviously feeling it at the moment, as we all are here, but it's not impossible. We're not sat 10 points adrift or anything like that. We just need to play game by game. Whoever's in the manager's seat, we'll talk about that obviously later, but we've just got to keep going, keep putting in good performances, better performances. But yeah, I think we'll be all right. I'm starting to feel more confident than I was yesterday. I'll be honest. I think we saw enough of key players yesterday, like Jerry, like Salverson, obviously Nyambi coming back as well, Ozo back on the pitch. There's stuff to be positive about. So let's not just focus on all of the negativity.
Yeah, definitely. There are things to be, positive about. Yeah, players coming back is vital. Nyambi coming back, Ozo coming back, it'll be huge for us. But one of the things that you mentioned there was about the performances. And how many times have we said it this season where Derby have put in a good performance up to a point and then conceded 1 or 2 goals really quickly, and then they've got a mountain to climb. Derby haven't won a game from behind all season. Not really surprised at that. We don't really win games anyway. But the fact that we've not won one from behind all season, I think, shows a bit of a problem, because if teams work us out, we don't seem to be able to do anything else. I mean, Vik, looking at the collapse that we had, that first goal, I've watched it back a couple of times, and Ben Osborne's defending is embarrassing, I'll be honest. He doesn't even get goal side of the attacker running into the box. Lets him have a free run into the box, dinks it across. For side beaten too easily, Robinson gets across him, and we end up in a position where he sort of has the shot, it deflects off the side. Zetterstrom should probably do better as well. Although the only sympathy I have for him is before that ball hits for side, it's going right in the far corner on the other side. So he's mid-movement, but he should still do better than where he put it in the end. And he gets the tap in, and then 30 seconds later, we concede again. And if not for Zetterstrom later in the game, we'd have conceded 4 or 5. He made some really important saves early on. He made some really important saves towards the end. Vik, I feel like if we didn't have Zetterstrom in goal, yes, he made the mistake yesterday. Yeah, he probably sat there last night thinking, for God's sake, why have I done that? But if we didn't have such a good goalkeeper, Derby would be getting pummeled every week at the minute, I think. I think every single game we'd be conceding 3, 4, 5 goals if we didn't have a keeper that was pulling out save after save. I mean, that is a bit of a worry, isn't it? You know, I know in a lot of games we've been quite close. This team surely can't be that bad that there's that much of a gulf between them and the opposition every time we play them.
I think with Zetterstrom, I think it's been one of the key signings of the year. You can see the quality he has as a keeper. One-on-ones, there's probably no one better than him. But other than that, I think, like you said, we could have conceded 5, 6 goals yesterday, and it would have been really difficult for us to sort of get back. And there's been times this season where himself alone has kept us in this game. The problem I have with the side is the fact that even when we're playing out from the back, there's not a lot of movement in terms of the players in front of him. So, like for the second goal, when Elder gets dispossessed, there was nobody he could really give it to for him to get dispossessed. So he's carried on running. Before you know it, they've nicked the ball off him and they're gone. The problem is and we keep talking about plan A, plan B, whatever. Sometimes I think to myself, it looks as if the players, when they're on the pitch, don't really know what they're doing, or they're a bit confused as to what to do. Now, simple football is if one of your players has picked up the ball, make space for him, either pull the player apart or get into space so you can receive that ball. Derby don't do that, and I think it's been a story of our season where if someone picks up the ball on the left side, they've been told to cross it in rather than play through the middle. I mean, we need to sort of vary up the way we play because it's too predictable. But yeah, like you said, Zetterstrom has kept us in so many games this season, and he's been a really good signing. Yeah, he probably should have done better for the first, but what's the keeper meant to do if your body is leaning to one side and you've had to make a point blank save? In my opinion, he couldn't do any more than that, and unfortunately, it just fell to Robinson, who is on hot form at the minute, and he just taps it in. And the El Ghazi, who I did say we should have signed before the season started, by the way, in our transfer up, should have took him, but yeah, got a goal, and that was it. We got sucker punched, but the problem with the Derby side is we're not a proactive team. We're quite reactionary. We have to wait till we go a goal down before we actually kick into gear. We need to start taking the game to teams, and for the first half, we did. We just lacked the quality, and like I said, sometimes when you're in this position, the luck is always going against you. I feel like we're going through that at the minute. I know someone's going to point out and say, yeah, we've only won 4 games in 25, but in recent performances, it's fine margins of we're missing big chances, and when you miss them, you get punished, and it's happened to us week upon week. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I think we've got to sort of focus on the positives and just try and keep some sort of faith in this side, and hopefully we can sort of turn it around sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting in the comments as well, just having a read whilst we've been doing all of this. Don't worry, we are looking. We can see you. Um, it's very split. There's 50% saying Warne's not good enough, you can't do it. The other half are saying Warne is the right man for the job. He's just not got the resources. Now, we'll have a big chat about that in a second. What I do want to say, which is, something that I've found really baffling actually the last day, is the way people have spoken to each other. And again, I'm not going to be the, Twitter police or whatever, because it's really not that deep. But I don't think we need to be horrible to each other. I think that's really important. I don't think we need to be horrible to each other. I've seen a lot of people that are worn in being very, very aggressive to people that are worn out and vice versa. Don't get that. So that's my personal moan. I don't see the point in being horrible to each other and being horrible personally about Warne himself, because he's doing a job. He's trying his best, clearly. So yeah, let's not be personal and let's be abusive. But right, let's get on to Paul Warne. Right now, I've drafted up a list of what I'd say are things that are pro Paul Warne staying and things that are against Paul Warne staying. And I'd be really interested to see the comments on this as well. And I want both of you guys' opinions on all of this. So I've drafted up my reasoning for Paul Warne staying. So Ozo and Niambi are returning from injury, so we'll get a more solid team, and he'll get a holding midfielder, so we'll be able to see what he can actually do with a full team. Phillips hopefully on his way back soon as well, so we've got a full defence. He signed Salverson, and immediately he's come in, scored a goal, and looked decent. He said he's going to bring in 2 centre-backs and 2 midfielders, so we likely will have a very different team to work with. it's also a lot cheaper for us in the short term for him to stay. And I've also put not backed hugely in the transfer market. Although, two things. One, we've actually spent more than Portsmouth and Oxford, who, Oxford look miles better than us at the minute, and they're in a really good run. I won't say why, but it might be to do with the fact they've got a new manager. And I think some of Paul Warne's signings are comfortably, out and out Paul Warne signings that we know have come from Warne are comfortably the worst that we've got. I'm talking your Caden Jacksons and your Ben Osborne's. I'm sorry, Ben Osborne, I keep going to you today, but you've not been good enough recently. And they're the signings that I've looked at and thought, they're not great. They're not great. You can tell who the recruitment team have picked up, because I don't think Warne was watching the Norwegian First Division. But the ones that we brought in, he wanted Jackson for years. He tried to sign him for Rotherham, and he's brought him in at Derby, and he's not been at the level we need. Osborne, again, he's got a lot of contacts in that part of the world, and he's ended up pulling some strings to get Osborne in. He can only play one game a week, and it just makes you think, what are we doing? Why are we signing these players? But Jamie, I want to go to you first. What other reasons have you got for Paul Warne staying in the job? Are there any mitigating circumstances that I've missed, or do you agree with what I've said?
I definitely agree with what you said. I mean, he does tell good jokes and makes good puns, doesn't he? So at least there's that. No, I'm joking. No, I think you've covered everything. I think he has been unlucky as well with injuries, but then I think on the flip side of that, we obviously lost Corey Blackett-Taylor to a muscle injury yesterday. He had some heavy strapping on it, so I'm not too sure if it's something that's he's been managing or what's kind of been happening. But the fact that we've lost multiple players to muscle injuries and the injury record this year has been pretty shocking is a worry. So I think they kind of offset each other as like a pro and a con. I think you've summed it up. You've summed it up quite well, and it's very difficult because the pros I really want to back Warne. He's the man that's got us promoted, and I saw a tweet. Obviously, I think it's Darren Whitcoop replied to one of my tweets yesterday to say that he's basically got credit in the bank for getting promoted, and I think at the start of the season he probably did, and I think maybe a month ago he still had credit in the bank, but if Paul Warne goes to an ATM tomorrow, I think that credit is now in the red, in my opinion. So it's just so difficult because I want it to work, but I can see why fans are so passionate about wanting to change. And you look at Oxford, I know you just mentioned there, Oxford getting Rowett in. Look what's happened to them. Look how they've taken off with a new manager, and sometimes that is all that it takes to stay in the division. So it's really difficult to to really kind of go in hard at the moment on Warne and list off loads of cons, but I'll try and let Vik take that and see if he's got anything else.
We haven't even got to cons yet, mate. That was pros. Go on, Vik. Go on, Vik.
Why do you just focus on the pros? Yeah, I think pros is. I'd argue he's a very good sort of manager in the sense that he's got a good connection with his players. If he hasn't got it with the fan base, that's a different story. But with the players, they look like they want to play for him. You can see that every game, the majority of the players are, in his terms, gassing out, and you can see that they're really trying hard, 110% effort every game. So he's definitely got the togetherness there in the squad, and I think that. Yeah, he's got. See, the problem is I think last season we saw the best of what we could have got out of Paul Warne in the sense that there was a lot of things, even behind the scenes, were all for Paul Warne. Now we've got this medical team in. We've also got sporting intelligence, and I know that the club's trying to go in a different direction, but I just get the sense that it wasn't to Paul Warne's liking. I think even last week he mentioned something about having an opinion on the medical team. And to me, I think when you've got people like that involved who are in your ear constantly, it sort of automatically changes how you shape a game. Now, if you're being told that you need to take people like Tom off after 60 minutes, when you probably think he could do another 20, I think that might impact it. So he's a good man manager in that sense. He's got the togetherness of the squad. I think in League One, he was exactly what we needed. He's got us promoted from that league, and fair play to him, and he deserves his credit for that. again, I'm trying to focus on any more pros. To be honest, I've run out. I've got a lot more cons than pros, but I think in the sense that he's a genuinely nice guy as well. I know in football, it's not about being nice and all that stuff, but when it comes to a personal level, and it goes back to what you said about the fan base being quite personal and attacking and being quite horrible to each other, as well as him on social media. I don't think that should be done. He's a nice guy outside of football. I've met him a few times, and he's a really down to earth sort of person. You can get on with him really well. So he's got that good personality, even if he does tell a few dodgy jokes. For me, it's just tactically when you get to the championship, you sort of get found out. But we'll talk about the cons in a bit. So yeah, those are my pros for him, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's interesting listening. That's a good point about, what he's like, how much he's liked, isn't he? I remember being told that, the atmosphere was the best in a long, long time under Paul Warne, at the training ground, at Moor Farm, at the club, because, everyone gets on with him. It's a really nice environment to work in, to come to work every day, which is exactly what you want. And that's what you want in football. You probably don't get that at every club. There's some clubs where it's probably not enjoyable at all. So it's good that players do want to come in, do want to come and train in. They're not trudging in every day like, oh God, we're training again. But one thing you mentioned there, Vic, is we've brought in that sporting intelligence team. We've brought in this new physio team. Who's made that decision? Who's made that choice? Because we don't have any form of sporting director. We don't have any form of director of football. So who's made that decision? And that's one of the things that's confused me a little bit. And if there's going to be one criticism of David Clowes, and obviously everyone's favourite person, Stephen Pearce, it'd be, why haven't they brought a football person in? And it's concerning hearing you say that, actually, Vic, because thinking about it, if we've got people that have been brought in that are making footballing decisions, but a non-footballing person's brought them in because they think that's the right thing to do, that's a little bit of a worry. That is a little bit of a concern. So let's hope you're wrong. Let's hope that that's not the reason behind anything, because otherwise that's not good at all. But Jamie, we have to talk about cons, everyone's favorite bit. Again, we've seen so many, but this is my list of Warne cons, and it's a bit longer than the other one. So I've put, he's tactically one-dimensional. We're easy to play against. Every team knows we want to go down the wing and cross it in, and we don't use players like Kenzo Haldmine to their strengths, playing it into their feet, playing through the middle, getting them involved, constantly playing players out of position. Ben Osborne is not a pivot. He spent his whole career playing like wing back or on the wing or in attacking midfield. He's not a pivot player. Kenzo Haldmine isn't a holding midfielder. Caden Jackson probably isn't a right winger. Mendes Lang isn't a left winger. Marcus Harness isn't an attacking midfielder. The list kind of goes on. We've had a lot of players playing out of position for the majority of the season. The constant injuries. Now, I've seen in the chat a couple of people mention, he's got such an injury crisis to work with. But this is what happened at Rotherham too. And I spoke to a couple of Rotherham fans earlier just to make sure, and they had constant injury crises whenever they were in the Championship, constantly. Now, that makes me think, are we doing too much in training? That's the obvious go-to cause, isn't it? Is that the players are gassing out in training, and then when it comes to a match day, they've got so many miles in the legs that, they're pulling hamstrings. We've lost 4 players to hamstring injuries in a week. That is unheard of. That does not happen anywhere else. Relegation history, I've put, it's obviously harsh to hold that against him because, again, different scenario. You can't use someone's past to judge their current actions, but it is something worth thinking about that, 3 seasons in this league, 3 relegations. I think the feeling in the fan base, I don't feel too excited going to the football anymore. Even parts of last season, until we were really in that final run-in, I wasn't feeling like, yes, get in, time to watch football, because, we'd see a goal and we'd celebrate and it'd be a great day, but like, away games this season, Bristol City, I actually wasn't even too bothered about the football that day. I actually had more fun going with my brother, seeing Adam and all them and having a laugh with people that I was friends with and going and seeing them. It was more of a social thing than watching the football. And then, obviously, the most important thing of all, our current run. 2 wins and 10 defeats since November 6th when we beat Coventry away. 1 away win all season. We just lose so many games. And that is really difficult to take. Again, I've moaned about my away record, my 1 win, 8 defeat away record so far this season. And like, Jamie, there's a lot of things going against Paul Warne at the minute. there's a lot of things against him, and that's why I put out yesterday. Maybe I was a little bit, I don't know, hasty, but it's just not been good enough, has it? It's just not good enough, and it doesn't look like there's an end in sight. And when we talk about the pros, obviously players coming back is massive. If you can get a few through the door, it's massive as well. But it'd feel then like we're relying on individual quality, and it still wouldn't be a style thing. I think from my perspective, unless he changes the style, we're not going to improve. I mean, what do you think, mate? I know you've spoken about some cons already, but this is your opportunity to explore deeper.
Well, I thought you were giving me the floor to talk about pros and cons, so apologies about that. But yeah, I mean, you've summed it up quite well. And when you say it out loud and you read it on posts on X, it does stack up. It's not good enough. It really isn't good enough. And I think for me, the one thing that annoys me is just the blind faith of certain players in this team, the likes of, for me, Caden Jackson, the likes of Nathaniel Mendez-Lang. And I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but I think he's in the team based upon what he did for us last season. I don't think he's been good enough this season to warrant the starts that he's got. And I think it just comes down to the fact that it feels that he's picking players that he knows are going to give 100%. And don't get me wrong, as Derby fans, that's just the thing we love to see, isn't it? That's the minimum expectation. But unfortunately, it's just so one-dimensional, like you said. It's get it down to the wings. It's see if you can put a ball into the box. 9 times out of 10, you can't. It's cleared. It's have a 10-minute spell where you look like you're going to score and not score, and then they go up the other end and score a goal. It just feels like every single game, well, definitely over this kind of run that we're on at the moment, this kind of pattern. So I don't think I can add too much more to what you've put there, but just hearing, like I said before, hearing it out loud, it just feels that maybe it is time to make a change and look at the likes of Oxford, look at the likes of Plymouth that obviously got a good result yesterday, and see what we can do, see if we can change the fortunes, because I think we all agree we've got individuals, and I think this team is good enough to stay up. I really do think that. But yesterday was the moment. Yesterday was the game that I felt it was all going to turn around, and unfortunately, it just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, look at our team that went down in that season. That should have stayed up. We got enough points to stay up, and you look at that team and you go, well, our goalkeeper's better now. We've probably got a better defence. We've probably got a couple of players better in midfield as well. With Salverson up front, Salverson's better than Colin Kazan-Richards. He's better than Luke Plange, definitely. You look at Wild, it's probably only really maybe Tom Lawrence, maybe Fessi Ebasele, but he only came in towards the end of the season. Malcolm Ebioe, he only came in towards the end of the season. A lot of those players from that season, I don't think are anywhere near as good as the players we have now. So, it makes you think, why can't he get more out of them? And that's what's really thrown me. I mean, we've got a comment from Paul talking about Richie Barker being the main coach. And yes, I agree. When we're criticising Paul Warne, or anyone's criticising Paul Warne, I'd hope that they're criticising the team as a whole, because clearly it's not all on Warne. Warne isn't going to be the main tactician. Richie Barker's most likely the main tactician. So, yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, Vic, what are your thoughts on the cons? I'm sure you've got an endless list that you can reel off for us.
In terms of cons, we're looking again. You've mentioned it already about being too one-dimensional, only having a plan A, being too predictable. Like you said, in recent games, it's all been give the ball to Wilson, let him try and do a bit of magic and put the ball into the box for Yates, who never seems to be in the box to try and get a goal. So we're very predictable in that sense. And I think we can get away with it in League One because the quality is obviously less than it is in the Championship. However, when you are playing in the second tier of English football, and we know the quality that's in this league now, you see multi-million-pound players, multi-million-pound squads. And when you're comparing it to that, you've got to at least tactically be matching them. I mean, some of the teams that we've come up against and I will say rookie managers such as your Tom Cleverleys and players like that who've become managers, Warne's been out tacticked by them, and it's a shame that, because I just think that obviously he's got more footballing experience. However, because you're reluctant to try and change your plan A and come up with something different, and you're trying to stick to your guns and you're persisting with something that isn't working, that's to the downfall. I also think that Paul Warne has a very underdog mentality, and I think that's developed from his Rotherham days. And normally they say a team is a reflection of the manager, and I think the team itself has adopted this underdog mentality where we have to always be backs against the walls. We have to sort of have almost like a siege mentality, but we're not really using it to our advantage, especially away from home as well. I think because we've got this underdog mentality, it's like we're not really kicking into games until we've gone a goal down or the other opposition are completely on top of us. And I think that because you've got something like that, it really is a detriment to the team. Again, I just think tactically he's not quite there. He's perfect for League One. So the Bolton, if you want to get promoted at some point in your lives, he's probably the right man for the job. But when it gets to the Championship, he couldn't make the step up with Rotherham. And I thought, given a chance with Derby, sort of a bigger club, maybe we've got a bit more of a bigger budget, he might have a better chance, and maybe we could see what he has to offer. But it just goes to show that he just isn't quite this level. We said some of the squad aren't quite this level. I've also got to say that I think the management side, the coaching stuff, I don't think are either. And I think change is probably needed. Other than that, I think sometimes Warne doesn't help himself with the comments he makes. I think when he's doing his post-match presses and you're saying things like League One squad with sugar on top, there might be an element of truth in that, but it's not something you really want to say to the fan base who are sort of trying to get behind you. And we know this is going to be a dogfight this year, but you're saying things like that, and you're saying we're playing at our best and it's not good enough. I think he said that after the Leeds home game or something like that. They're not comments you really want to put to your fan base, and it's no wonder that so much of the fan base has lost faith in him, because when you're making comments like that, you're tactically inept at this level, and you're making silly decisions, playing square pegs in round holes. It's a culmination of everything, and I just think that there is a good manager in him, but not at this level. And I just think that the lower leagues is probably where he will shine the most. He's had his opportunity in this division 3-4 times now, and I mean, I really want him to try and keep us up this year. Yes, I'll go on record and say I'm Paul Warne out, but I really do want him to try and keep this team up if we're not looking to change managers, because if he can do that, then he's proved something to himself as well as the footballing world and the fans, and he can go back and say, look, whatever happens end of the season, if he gets sacked or whatever, that's at the end of the season. But he can turn around and say, look, I managed to keep this side up, and that's an achievement in itself for him. But I just think with us, I think the ambition's got to be a bit more big, and I think change is needed, to be honest.
Yeah, and I hope he does keep us up if he does stay. Well, obviously, I hope he keeps us up, but I want him to succeed. I don't want him to fail. I think that's the important thing, and I think that's a lot of the people that are, Warne's greatest defenders seem to miss that point sometimes. I think a lot of people are just worried. I'm really worried. I'm worried that if we go down, we don't come back up. If we go down, we could end up getting stuck down there for years. I don't want us to become a yo-yo club between League One and the Championship. Why let ourselves get in that position? And that's what's concerning me at the minute. Every point you said there, Vic, I agree with. I think in my current position, I think it's probably best, from my view, if he does go. I mean, look at Burton, rooted to the bottom of the League One table. New manager, Gary Bowyer's come in, completely turned them around. They've won 2 games in a row. They were 11 points from safety a few weeks back. They're now 6 points from safety. They're absolutely flying. Why can't Derby do the same? Why can't Derby have a manager like Gary Rowett that's come in and changed it? Why can't that happen to us? Is Warne on 70 grand a week? Who knows? Is it a financial reason? I don't know. Surely the cost of going down vastly outweighs the cost of sacking him. So if David Clouse backs him, we've got to back him, as depressing as that is. If results don't turn around, I can see it getting really ugly if we lose on Saturday. I really don't want us to lose. I'm desperate for us to win. But if things don't go right, then, people are going to start to turn. If, it's speculation, but 7 defeats in a row, go to Norwich away. We lose every game away from home. Would that be 8 defeats in a row? That's equal to our worst ever record. And suddenly you're looking at it and thinking, yeah, we might get a few players in, but how do we turn this around? How do you get out of this rut? How do you tell a group of players that have lost 8 games in a row to pick themselves back up and play again? Think back to that 11-point team. Early on in the season, we got a couple of draws. We got that win against Newcastle. There was a bit of hope. And then they started getting battering after battering after battering. And even though we made a few January signings, the team just couldn't turn it around and they couldn't pick themselves back up again. And that's what I worry Derby will be like in this one. I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't need Paul Jewell. We need someone a bit better than Paul Jewell, probably with a few less scandals as well. But, if we could get a manager in that could change it, in my personal opinion, that's what I'd want. But again, if one stays, I'll 100% back it. I'm sure you think the same, Jamie.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't remember a time where I've booed a manager. Maybe I have. Maybe in my younger years. Maybe I did boo Paul Jewell or whoever was
Phil Brown.
Phil Brown, yeah, one of those managers. Maybe I did, but I've not done it for a long time, and I don't intend to do it again. I feel exactly the same as you guys, and for me, it's taken me a little bit of time to get here because I still have this affinity with Warne for taking us up, and it gets to a stage where, look, if he went today, maybe in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, you look at it and think, we can still hold him in high regard, but if he stays and we start falling, and this run continues, it will get more angry. It will get more personal, which we really don't want. So, look, I would absolutely love to get a result, any result against Sheffield United. I think even if we drew the game and got a point just to stop the rot, that would be amazing. But it's some game. They're obviously coming off the back of a humbling against Hull. So they're going to be right up for it. They'll come and smell blood. Yes, we are at home, so I obviously see that as a positive. Maybe it's Ben Osborne's first goal in front of the South Stand. Who knows? Let's be optimistic. You've unmuted to correct me, Jake.
Oh no, you say that every week, mate.
That's true. It's very true. But yeah, it's difficult, and I feel for every Derby County fan. And like I said before, I know where the anger comes from. I know where the frustration comes from. But as Jake said at the top of the show, if you've just tuned in live and you didn't get Jake's spiel on being nice to each other, then look, let's just take a step back, realise that nothing should be personal is personal. You don't need to get personal with Paul Warne or somebody else that doesn't have the same view as you. We're all in it together at the end of the day. We all love the club. We all want what's best for the club. That's not saying don't go and don't boo. If you want to boo the manager, boo the manager. If you want to tweet what you want to tweet, do that. But just try and think about the personal element of it, because you don't really know who's reading. And we want to be in a position where we can all stick together opposed to being split in and out. So, have I echoed what you said there, Jake? Pretty much.
You have. Although if you do see Jamie at Norwich away, get one in on him. Get one in on him.
On the I've got a bad back at the moment, so any push would completely finish me off, to be honest.
We probably won't celebrate a goal, mate, so I wouldn't worry too much. I think you'll be fine. And Vic, before we go, one final thing. I mean, we've had a little bit of transfer news. Dom Dietrich came out earlier talking about Erin Cashin, how he's basically on the way out. It's looking, probably a bit like 6.5 million plus for Cashin, plus add-ons, however much the add-ons would be. He'd be replaced by Matt Clark, most likely. Again, ex-Derby, ex-Player of the Year. I think he'd be a great sign. I really do. He'd be massive for us. Paul Warne wants another midfielder in. I'm almost scared to say the name Harvey Nibs, but Harvey Nibs has been, heavily linked. Please don't hurt me. And we also got another centre-back potentially coming in as well. Feeling positive about the rest of the window? What are your thoughts on Cash?
Obviously, gutted to see him leave, but I think he's deserved it. Being honest, I think he's been ever present for Derby, and I think he's always put a real consistent performance in every game that he's played in both levels, League One and the Championship. So, obviously, he's probably our best centre back, but I think he's earned the right to sort of go and try and test himself higher up and fair play to him. Brighton have come in; they haven't given up, and I think that Brighton have got a real good signing on their hands there. A very good young centre back who I think will probably slot into their team in a year's time once they've bedded him. So I'm gutted he's leaving. However, I just think he deserves a chance, and I think we shouldn't really stand in his way if the offer is good. If it is 6.5 million, we've got to invest that as soon as possible. I know some people have jokingly said use that to sack Paul Warne and his coaching staff, but let's be honest, he's not off. He's not on his way out. So if we're gonna use that, let's go and get some decent players in. Matt Clark, good signing in my opinion. I have seen another rumor that Portsmouth are trying to hijack the bid. I think it might be fake news, but I hope it's fake news anyway. But Matt Clark's a good signing. We need to get bodies in the building now. This next few days is pivotal to Derby season. If we can really plump out the squad with some quality, then I think we'll be all right, and we might have a better chance of staying up. So it's a very important few days for us. But yeah, I just think that from now until the 1st of Feb, Paul Warne's got to be very busy. If he's not going anywhere, he better be in that office for the next 6-7 days, day and night, trying to bring players in of quality that can add to this squad.
Absolutely, completely agree. So thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the chat. Thank you to everyone in the chat as well. It's been genuinely really interesting reading. I know we've not jumped into it too much, but we've had so much to get through over this past 45 or so minutes. So we've been reading it the whole time and taking in your opinions. I'm really ill currently. Jamie has no spine and Vic's been working nights. So we're all maybe feeling a little bit rough at the moment. So thank you for bearing with us when we've been suffering a little bit. Derby, I mean, it's never fun supporting Derby, is it? But, it's a difficult time. Let's stick together. We'll be all right. We'll get there eventually. It is goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Salvesen our season, SOS. It's goodbye from me.
I love it, Vic. And if you did enjoy, please do leave a like, subscribe. You know what to do by now. And Vic, you got any last words? The wise man?
Yeah, just keep the faith. Let's unite as a fan base. Okay, if we don't agree with the manager, we've seen that we can always come out of the tough times if we're together as one. So let's unite the fan base. Let's really get behind the lads, and let's go and try and push to that safety line. Let's go, Derby County. Come on, you Rams.
You heard the man. Come on, you Rams. We'll see you on Wednesday.